Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to your Ep.29 Draft Glory franchise mode here in NHL 26. So, in last episode, if you did not catch it, we had a pretty tough first round against the New York Rangers in a rematch of last year. And unfortunately for us, as you can see, we managed to lose in 7 games. Now, it did start off well with a nice 5-1 victory, so we found our offense and still had our great defensive game from the regular season. But you can see eventually we went on a big 3-game losing streak. This one we only lost by 2 goals, so not a terrible loss, but definitely a game where we should have played better defensively again, like game 1. Then game 3, we lost in overtime, so just barely lost that one. Game 4, we lost by only a goal as well, so these 2 games I definitely think our team could have won. And in the last 3 games, you can see we pulled out a 5-2 win, a 5-4 overtime win in triple overtime on a shorthanded goal from our captain, Adam Banak, which was fantastic to force a game 7. And in game 7, unfortunately for us, our offense dried up completely, and we could not find a way to score as we lost 2-0. So we packed our bags in 7 games. It was a tough exit considering last year, obviously, we got to the second round, but obviously the New York Rangers are still a pretty decent team in terms of how they're built up. And obviously it sucks to kind of regress a little bit from last season, but I do think this team is going to still have a good chance at winning the Stanley Cup or at least getting far in the playoffs in these next couple of years because obviously, we're getting a lot of good growth from guys in the system at the moment, but obviously if we have good drafts and stuff like that as well, we could continue to build up that depth. We still have a lot of our guys under contract for a number of years. The big player, obviously, that's up for renewal this offseason is Dave Antonio, which is an interesting one, but guys like Hromis and Klinger are still signed for a few years. Obviously, Klinger is going to be needing to come back after this contract ends. Hromis is going to be relatively expensive, but I do think we still have a window of opportunity to win the Stanley Cup. But obviously, it's going to take a lot of work to hopefully get this team from where they are now to hopefully having some success in the postseason as well. So, anyways, with that said, let's get your guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we will get into the offseason and see what our team is looking like going into the 2037-38 season. So the first comment is from Nick Baca Barons OC, who says, felt like one of the last chances, and I kind of disagree with that, to be honest, because I think this team still has a pretty decent window of actually having some good success. We've only made the playoffs a few times in this franchise mode, so I don't think our window is going to be open and closed that fast, if I'm being honest. But I do think, obviously, our team could still lose some big players, obviously, in the next few years, like I was mentioning. Like Dave Antonio, obviously, is a player that probably won't be coming back this offseason. We'll get more into that in a little bit. But obviously, having guys like Klinger up in the next few years, I need to be able to re-sign him. I'm hoping he's not asking for the sun and the moon. We'll probably have to re-sign him before that season starts, because or else he'll ask for even more than that. And then you can see Hromis, obviously, is only making 9.5 right now, but his asking price will probably go up as well. So yeah, that's going to be kind of pricey. At least we have Adam Banak for a couple more years, but we still need to find a center to replace him at some point in time, I would assume, just because I don't think Roger Green is going to really develop much more than he currently is. He's been a great player, but he's not really that same level as Banak, so yeah, definitely there's a little bit of a worrisome that obviously we don't have a huge window to win a Stanley Cup in, but I think we still have a really solid roster for what we have, and I think this team could definitely still have a decent season this year and the years to come as well until some of these guys are up for renewal. Obviously, Forster is going to be a pending UFA again at the end of this upcoming season, but obviously Simic could be ready to take over that job. Maybe our goaltending improves even drastically compared to the last few seasons. I don't really know, but I do think this team still has a chance to win at least one Stanley Cup before our window of opportunity closes, and then we have to try and build ourselves back into a playoff team. But obviously there's around, I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 10 seasons left. I can't remember when this franchise mode technically would end, and maybe it's 10 to 12 seasons left in this franchise, so I think we still have an opportunity to at least make it for maybe half the many years we have left. The next comment is from Dylan Burrows, who says, I think we should make a rule about number of no movement clauses. And this is an interesting one. I understand why he's saying it, but I don't think it's something that really needs to be a rule because of the fact that, for instance, all these guys that are on no movement clauses and stuff like that, technically our team can't make trades anyways. So by saying, hey, have a no movement clause, I mean, technically Lee has a no movement clause, even though he doesn't have an actual clause. So I think personally, it doesn't matter how many no movement clauses and no trade clauses we give out. I know it does bump up the interest a little bit more, but honestly, I think it's kind of fine because, like I said, technically a lot of these guys that are under contract long term, we could say that they're actually on clauses. It's just they're not actually shown because we didn't give them one. So I think it honestly doesn't matter too much. Obviously, it could be a way of cheesing the system in terms of contracts and stuff like that, but it's not really that much exponentially more than a contract without a clause. So I think it's fine to keep doing what we're doing, but obviously, if you guys think it's actually something we should do, is where we should have not give out as much no movement clause as we have, maybe we could do that, but I feel like it's kind of making it even more harder for us to build up a decent team. So I probably wouldn't do it, but maybe if we do this type of thing again next year or whatever, like another European draft to glory, maybe we could do that as a kind of an added bonus to make it harder if this is too easy. Next comment is from Michael Dose, who says the Rangers player gave up that puck in triple overtime because he was falling asleep. And if you were falling asleep as a player in a triple overtime, that would be absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, that definitely did happen. Kind of like, I think it was Ethan Del Mastro, if I remember right, because he literally went from behind his net, kind of lost the puck off the side of his net, and it went forward right to Benak, who was able to put in the shorthand goal. So we're lucky that we kind of won that game to force that game 7, but it sucks that we didn't come out on top. If we would have won game 7, I feel like our team would have found a way to somehow win the Stanley Cup after that, just because when luck is on your side, luck can literally drive a team from being kind of like a cheese team, like kind of what we're identified as, to a team that could win a Stanley Cup. Next comment is from Sour Taku, says, you have so many good defensive prospects, it doesn't make sense to pay for Antonio to come back. I'm also uncertain as to who you should take in the draft. Probably a medium to top 6 gem. And yeah, I don't know about Dave Antonio coming back. We'll talk more about it when we actually get to the re-sign stage itself, I think. But I don't think it really does make sense, like he's saying, because we do have a lot of good defensive prospects, including Polak, who's unsigned and ready to basically jump into our defensive core. There's a couple other good defenders too in the system, like Ullman, for instance, and Richardson, I think his name was. So I really just don't think there's a chance for Dave Antonio to come back. But obviously, when we get to the re-sign stage, we'll kind of look at it a little bit more in depth just to see if it's actually something we should do or not. He does also say in the draft to probably take a medium top 6 gem. I honestly have no idea what we're going to take in this first round. There is some top 6s supposed to go late in the first round, which is obviously great, but I don't really know who's supposed to go around our spots, so I honestly don't know what we're going to go with. But I obviously hope that we make the right selection with whatever we end up taking. So hopefully it's a decent draft for us. It doesn't look like necessarily one of the best draft classes on paper, but I'm just hoping that we can find stuff to continue building up this depth of this team, because obviously we're going to need some of those type of players if we end up losing players on our current roster. And the last and final comment is from I Am the Quiet One, who says, history being made with this team. You had the first goalie goal by Forster and now triple overtime win. Coming into the offseason, I think Dave still has to go, unfortunately. I don't really know who is to pick for the draft. And yeah, honestly, with the draft and all that, I honestly have no idea who to select either. So it's going to be kind of a little bit of work in progress. We're probably actually have to take a time out during the draft and kind of figure out who we want to select with that selection. So anyways, with that said, we do have to still simulate through the rest of the playoffs and find out who wins the Stanley Cup, because last episode was quite a long one, so I ended it at this point in time. So let's continue to sim up to draft. Is the AHL team in the playoffs still? Yeah, they were, right? Yeah, they are. Let's simulate through the AHL playoffs, maybe. You know what? Actually, I'm going to not pay attention to the AHL and just hope that the AHL finds a way to win. And if they win the Calder Cup, we'll obviously take a look at their stats from then. But let's find out who wins the Stanley Cup in 2037. But hopefully, like I was saying, the AHL team has a good playoff run. They are going pretty far right now. But there's guys on this team that will come up to the NHL probably next year's. Rakunik is back and fully healthy now, which is great because he was out for a long time with a broken leg. So he's back. Richardson is currently still injured, so I'm not going to throw him back in. So I will not worry about that right now. But you can see Rankin and Fernandez, these two guys I'm really, really excited about. I think they can make a huge impact on our NHL team next season, which is going to be great, and make our fourth line even better. And then Ullman, like I said, is very close. And Richardson might get a lot of growth where he's up to like a 78 by the end of the year or something like that. So there's a lot of guys coming, and I'm hoping that all of them could kind of make a good impact on this team. It looks like our AHL team got to the conference finals. They must have took out Syracuse, so that's really good. Hopefully they could get onto the finals themselves, because that would be huge for our team. As Rankin got injured in the playoffs, that's a substantial blow, because he was one of the best players down there in terms of his playoff points. Let's go replace player. That's not super long term, but I'm not too sure. Okay, he's already back. That's good. It was literally only like a day-to-day injury. We'll take Lee's back out here. and get Rankin back in. Obviously, Rankin was a first overall selection, so I really want him to succeed. He's not really developing that well, I would say, for obviously his positioning, but he had a great year so far, and maybe he'll make an impact in the NHL next season. And then Fernandez has been fantastic as well. So, yeah, these two guys, I'm very excited just to see what they could do at the actual NHL level when they play their next season, hopefully. Now, Bjorn Helmer has been injured with an injured elbow. Let's just go replace player, but that's another decent-ish AHLer. And I think our AHL team might have got eliminated because I have not seen a notification in a while, but I could be wrong. I really hope they didn't get eliminated because it would be kind of nice just to see if they won a Calder Cup, because if they win a Calder Cup, then that means obviously the future is bright for our NHL team still too. Hey, they got to the finals. Let's stop the simulation here for a second. I'm pretty sure they're in the finals, right? Let's double check on this. Yep, they're in the finals, I think, against San Jose. Yep, Calder Cup finals. Aces and Barracuda. And the Barracuda had a 55-win season. Yikes. That's going to be tough. Gotch is having a really good playoffs down there, too. So let's go through this a little slowly. Usually I don't focus too much on the AHL, but I feel like it's a good time to focus on it. So let's go one game at a time. First game in San Jose is a 4-1 loss. Yikes. It's kind of crazy that a good team like ours could run into a team like San Jose and lose a game like that. But we're still in the series. Let's see what happens in game 2. Still in San Jose. Can we find a way to tie the series up? No, we can't. We fall down 0-2. Of course, we had to run into a tough team like the Barracuda, huh? But it's good to see at least our teams got to the Calder Cup finals. Let's see what happens in game 3. See if they could find a way to win on home ice. As Dante Locke's been injured, let's go replace player on that. And we win that game 3-1. That's a nice win. Nice little win there for the boys as they are back in the series fully. Can we tie the series headed to San Jose? Let's see what happens. Game 4 is a 3-2 loss. Oh boy. Looks like they might end up losing in the finals. But like I said, at least it's a good run for our AHL team and for the top guys that are going to be coming to the NHL next year. Like, hopefully they can bring some of this winning pedigree a little bit. Anyways, let's see what happens in this game. Can this team extend the season? As Locke is back apparently, which is good news. I guess we extended the season because I didn't get any notification that we got eliminated yet. But there is some people that are not liking their performance. And we did force another game on an overtime victory. That's a huge win. I don't know who scored that OT winner, but that forces a Game 6 back on home ice. Can we force a Game 7 back in San Jose? This is a big, big game. The answer to that is yes, we can. A 1-0 shutout win for Gotch. And there's a Game 7 for the Calder Cup. I know, like I said, I don't really focus on the AHL too much, but this is great to see. I feel like doing a real-time simulation of this game. I know you guys probably aren't as invested in the AHL, but Gotch has a 931 in this AHL playoffs right now. So let's do an actual simulation of this game. An actual simulation of this game and see if our AHL team could win the Calder Cup. We're not going to slow sim it. We're going to do one period at a time. So let's see what happens. First period. And it's 1-0 San Jose over beats Gotch. Shots are 15-11. Let me actually move my face down here so you guys get a better look at everything. Can we find a way to tie it in the second period? We take the 2-1 lead. Romano and Locke. So not two high-end prospects, but Romano has a big goal. Will this AHL team win the Calder Cup? Let's do a real-time simulation of the third. But this team won an overtime game, didn't shut them out in Game 6. And, Lysak ties it up. I was going to say is not that long away from potentially winning a Calder Cup. Power play for us. And we do not score. And now we take the lead, and it's a real player that I think I signed as a cap whale, potentially. Pyatt makes it a 3-2 game. Is that it? Is that it? Is the Burnaby Aces the Calder Cup champions? Yes, they are. They win 3 straight games, and they are the Calder Cup champions, so at least our AHL team won something this year. So you guys can't really tell me that the window is closed yet or closing fast, because I think this team will be, this NHL team will be really good, because Fernandez and Rankin probably were the MVP, I would assume, in the playoffs this season. But what a comeback. Gotch posted a 950 in that last game, so Gotch was great. Obviously, he didn't play in the AHL all regular season because he was in our NHL team, but he helps that team to a Calder Cup victory, which is great. And in Colorado and Tampa will be facing off in the Cup Finals right now, which is obviously a rematch, so that's kind of funny. Also, this game is kind of glitching out a bit, so let's find out who wins the Stanley Cup. Is it going to be Colorado or Tampa? The answer is Tampa. Damn, Tampa came back from the 0-2 deficit. So Tampa, the Stanley Cup champions, and obviously we have won the Calder Cup for the first time in our team's history. So let's take a look at some player stats from our AHL team's playoff run. Just because I don't really care about the NHL team, but at this point, because I got eliminated, but I just want to see. Retzer led the way in points, 14 points in 20 games. And, oh, that's probably... Oh, actually, no, he didn't lead the way. I think it's just glitched out because the other guys got called up. So we'll have to take a look at Fernandez and Rankin here shortly. But Retzer and Helmer both were on 14 points. Slock had 11. Looks like some decent depth scoring for the AHL team. And like I said, I think Pyatt... Was Pyatt the cap whale I signed or no? Because he's a real player. Yeah, he was the cap whale, and he scored the Calder Cup winner. Well, he's making $25.4 million, and he won us the Calder Cup. Best defenseman on our team was Emerson with 12 points. Rakunik had 7 points in 13 games, so he did great since coming back from his injury. We didn't even play Richardson the rest of the way. I didn't realize he was back to full health. It didn't give me a notification about it, so that's a little bit weird, but at least the defensive core is still good. And then goaltending, a .932 save percentage from Gotch. So Gotch is going to be an interesting one going into next season because he could be a depth goaltender for us in the NHL because I think he's too good for the AHL, but he's not good enough almost to be a backup in the NHL. So he might be a third string goaltender for us next season, which is a bit strange, but it's probably got to be done. So there is that. Let's take a look at the actual awards for the season in the NHL and AHL. So Tampa wins the Stanley Cup, and then Montreal won the President's Trophy. That's 4 straight President's Trophies for the Habs, which is insane. Colorado and Tampa Cup Finals. Individual awards, Stutzlo wins the Art Ross. He also won the Hart. Lane Hudson wins the Norris. He also wins the Lady Byng. Fenton for Florida wins the Calder. Spike Phillips, I think it was, won the Conn Smythe for Tampa. That's that offensive defenseman I think I was mentioning. That's like 23, if I'm not mistaken. Shilovs wins the Vezina for Florida. That's his first, but I think he was up there a couple years ago as well, if I remember right. Wallstead wins the Jennings. Carlo wins the Masterton. I didn't even realize Brandon Carlo is still playing at this point. That's kind of insane. Florida's head coach wins the Jack Adams. Zuzan the Selke, that's a generated guy. I don't even know who he is. Connor Bedard wins the Lindsay. Goddamn, I can barely talk. And Bedard wins the Richard for the 3rd straight season. Just call it the Connor Bedard Trophy at this point. But AHL awards, Fraser Minton. Anybody else I recognize? Sam Bolduc. There's Fernandez. He was the MVP of our playoffs. Fernandez is very exciting, man. I can't wait to see what this kid could do in the NHL. We got to find ways to get him power play time too, though. But yeah, to be the Calder Cup MVP is great for him. So shout out to all those guys. Let's actually take a look at those two guys' stats as well. I guess we could take a look at those at the progress reports if we want to, which, maybe we'll just go to the contract situation here so I could take a look at those guys. So Rankin, it says he's only a 78. I thought he was going to be higher than that. And Fernandez is only a 78, but they'll be higher probably at the start of next season. Rankin's Calder Cup playoffs, he had 19 points in 19 games. He was great. And obviously now he'll be back in the NHL, probably pushing Miller to being a depth forward for us. Fernandez obviously was the Calder Cup MVP. 23 points in 20 games. Wow, that's awesome. Very good season for him. And yeah, he looks like he should be decent. His offensive awareness still needs work, and same with his faceoffs, but I'm excited to see what Fernandez and Rankin can do as full-time NHLers. Like I said, I think they can push Miller out into a depth forward position, and eventually I think they might push Mullen to more of a depth forward position as well. So that's interesting. All right, so there is that. Let's advance to some more off-season stuff because we got to get through this entire off-season and the actual draft itself. Obviously, a little bit longer of an episode probably for this one just because we had to finish off the regular season and all that. But Edmonton's going to win a draft lottery. Not really surprised. They won a lot in the 2010s. Don't know who they're... Oh, they're going to get that franchise player too. So maybe they rigged the draft lottery this year. Minnesota has 2nd, Carolina 3rd, Columbus 4th, and Calgary 5th. Obviously, we're going to be drafting quite late, but hopefully we could still find some decent stuff in this class. So yeah, I'm not too sure still who we're picking, but hopefully we find somebody good. All right, retirements this season. The best forward to retire is Nathan MacKinnon, so that's a pretty substantial retirement, over 2,100 points. Kyle Connor also retires, Brad Robertson, so some pretty decent names on the forward side of things. We'll just skim through all this, or as much of it as possible. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty much all the big names, I think. And there is some decently lower end names, but I don't really care too much about these guys, I don't think. Best defenseman to retire was Evan Bouchard in Toronto. Surprisingly, no Brandon Carlo has retired yet. I don't think, at least. Yeah, Carlo still hasn't retired. That's kind of weird. And then best goalie to retire is UC Saros. Lucas Dostal up there too. Swayman over 400 wins. That type of thing. All right, so those are all the retirements for the season. Now we got to look at the coach retirements, which we didn't lose anybody in the AHL, which is always good, and we didn't lose anybody in the NHL, which is even better. Draft interviews, we might as well look into this just in case there's anybody we actually need to interview. I don't even know where we're supposed to be drafting is the only problem. So let's just look through this briefly here and see if there's anybody worth... Actually, I could just go to the guys I had pinned, I guess, and see if there's anybody here that we didn't know fully. We know that we're going to take Cole Leak in a later round as that low elite DFD, for sure. But I wonder who's going to be our first round pick here. High elite goalie is kind of interesting as a later pick just for the value purpose to maybe generate enough growth. But first round, it's probably going to come down to all those top 6 forwards at this point. Maybe Mahalik could be interesting though too, because he is a center. He's 2 years out. I honestly might lean towards Kirk Mahalik just because we kind of need a replacement for Benak if we end up losing him. And if that guy ends up being a low elite, that'd be kind of nice. But there is also like a gem top 6 in Sereda who's not bad, but he's 3 years out. So we'll see what we end up taking, but I don't think I'm going to really even do any draft interviews because at this point, we don't really know how good this class is going to be. So, and drafting, only interviewing 3 people is not going to be enough. So let's hop into the 2037 draft and see what we could get and see what the eye grabs as well, of course. It looks like Hammerlich's on the block in New York now, which is kind of interesting. So the Islanders literally had some really good defenders at one point, and they didn't win a cup. Cale Makar's probably retired now. Hammerlich is on the trading block. Schaefer and Purrington both left to free agency. So the Islanders really blew their opportunity to win a Stanley Cup, I guess, early on. So that's kind of neat. Anyways, let's see what happens here. Edmonton with the first overall selection. We'll take Vikingstad. There's the center playmaker, medium franchise. So the replacement for McDavid, he wears 97 as well. Well, that's kind of interesting. Obviously, in real life, 97 would be retired, but I wonder what number Vikingstad would go with in maybe 79 or something like that. But this guy is the exact replacement that they needed, I guess, for McDavid. I'm not too sure if McDavid's retired yet. I think he has, if I remember right. But that's a pretty nice little pick up there for the Oilers. Minnesota at number 2 is going to select Sawyer. 80 overall left wing 2-way forward. Charles Sawyer, his name is. All right, good old Charlie. Carolina at 3 is going to select Dika. I think that's how it's pronounced. Saul Dika. Center right winger, 81 overall medium elite playmaker. Looks pretty balanced. Good face-off stats. Also could play the wing, of course. Yeah, not bad. Columbus at 4 is going to select Kavanov, who's a 77 overall right wing playmaker. Listed as a depth forward. A little bit weaker of a medium elite, but he should be good within 1 year. He might play already in the NHL, who knows. And then lastly, at 5, the Calgary Flames are going to select Baldwin, who's that high top 6 that we could have drafted if we would have been really bad. He's a high top 6, 64 overall at 18 as a 2-way forward. All right, good old Dave Baldwin. All right, let's simulate to our pick at 21 and see what we have a chance to grab here. Was there anything crazy that went before our selection? So Bush was one of the ones I think we had a chance to draft. He's a 65 top 6. I'm trying to remember who else we could have drafted. Oh, Burns, a medium elite OFD. I don't think we had a chance to draft him, though. Yeah, I don't remember who else we could have drafted. I probably should have written down some of the names just to kind of see how good they were, but it doesn't really matter too much. All right, so there is Lane O'Reilly as a potential option. Let me actually call it timeout just because we honestly have no idea still who's going to be that selection for sure. So there's Lane O'Reilly, as I was just mentioning. Center. We do need more centers. He's a top 9 or top 6. Doesn't really look the craziest. There's also Stajan as a center. He is 3 years out as well. And then obviously if we scroll down all the way down here, there's Grellinger as a right wing sniper. who is 3 years out. So all those guys are probably right around 65. Mahalik's still kind of intriguing to me because the fact that it says he's 2 years out. And he looks just as good. I honestly think Mahalik's the guy because he looks basically like he could be the same overall as those players that were before him, but his 2-year ETA makes me feel like he's a low elite over a medium top 6. He is a bit of a reach, but I feel like I would prefer to take him. There's also, like I said, Sereda as a gem, but I mean, I don't really know if I want more left wingers. I feel like I need more centers just because if we end up losing Benak. And then Ray is only a medium 4, but he's going to be a lower end medium 4 for sure. So I think I'm going to go with my gut and go with Mahalik here and hope that he's a low elite 65 overall. Because I think he's going to be a 65 based on the 3B stats. But I think his potential could end up being better than all these guys that are right up here, like Stajan, for instance, for sure, just because of the ETA. Now, he could be a top 6 forward that just has a higher overall, maybe, but I think I'm going to take a chance on him that he's a low lead or something like that instead. So, Kirk Mahalik is going to be our selection here at 21. How good is he? And he's a 67 overall medium top 6. Okay, that's good. That's a little bit of a higher overall top 6, so that's why the 2-year ETA. Sucks that he's not a low league kind of, but medium top 6 is great, of course. And hopefully he's a solid replacement. Does have okay faceoffs. Like I said, I think he could be a replacement for Benak if we in fact cannot bring him back at the end of his contract. But yeah, that's a decent selection. Because if you compare it to the players that went before, like, look, he's better than Eakin, better than Bush, better than Davidson, better than Paye. He's basically as good as somebody like Nystrom who went 15th. So I think we made the right call going from Mahalik a little bit off the board. We're obviously going to take a look at those other players here shortly. So better than Carlson in Ottawa. Better than Davidson, I would say, in a way, too, even though it's a defenseman. Same with Finnerty. Like, is there anybody actually around a 67 as good as that guy? Owen's a 65. O'Reilly's only a 64. See, I think we made the right call going a little bit more off the board because of that ETA. So, yeah, Stajan was only a medium 9. Damn, I'm glad I didn't take Stajan. I was thinking he was going to be a medium 6 guaranteed. So, yeah, I think we made the right call with our selection in this first round. So, let's simulate to round number 2. At this point, I have no idea what to go with, so this is going to be random as hell. There is more medium 9s, which is not terrible. This guy's got decent shooting and puck skills. 4 years out, though. There's also Janicki, who is 3 years out. Only 1 B stat, though. There is also Kuda, who is a guaranteed medium 9 sniper. 4 years out. Right now, I like that first guy because he's got 2 B stats, potentially. These other guys don't really look as good. A low 4 in Foligno. Our Foligno actually looks pretty good, though, too. Foligno could be like a 65. Right Ds are kind of valuable. I kind of like AJ Foligno a little bit as a low 4. I know he's not a gem, but he's not bad. Roger Crawford, Hoyle, Yeah, this is not a great class, really. There's also this guaranteed medium 6. He's supposed to go within 30 selections. I'd have to take him this round if I really want him. Since he's listed as a gem, it might make sense to take him. I kind of like that low 4 defenseman a bit, but Hans Furchner is interesting. He's 19 already, though. That's the only thing. I don't think I'm going to go for him since he's already 19. I think I'm going to go for the defenseman here. I think I'm going to go for the defenseman just because I think he's probably the highest overall out of this draft for this round. Like, he's probably a 65 at least. So, yeah, let's go for AJ Foligno with this next selection. And he is a low 4, of course. 62 overall, so a little bit lower than I expected, to be honest. But does have some good attributes if you look at this attribute spread. So I think he could develop into something. But if he doesn't, then hopefully he becomes at least maybe a depth defender. So that's a bit of an interesting pick. Now we go to pick number 87. See if we can get Sidney. Oh, look, Furchner's still there. Furchner's still there. I know he is 19, but he's listed as a gem, so it kind of makes me want to take him. He's not necessarily the craziest prospect in the world, but there's literally not really much else I would take at this point, I think. So, yeah, let's go for the 19-year-old. It's kind of lucky that he's actually still there because he was projected to go as early as 80 based on our scout rank. and an 84 to 87 right here. So let's go for Hans Furchner, the German, and see how good he is. 60 overall. Not bad, but obviously a little bit low for a 19-year-old medium 6, but maybe since he's listed as a gem, he'll actually develop. So I'll take it. We'll see if he ends up panning out. We'll definitely keep him unsigned for a year or something like that. But yeah, this draft class, I really don't expect to get anything like outrageously crazy that really impacts our roster, maybe. Who else do we got pinned still? This guy might be a medium 6, but he's 19. There is that low elite defenseman I wanted to take for sure. And there's that high elite goalie too. You know, I'm going to already go for the low elite defenseman. I know he's not supposed to go till later. I'm just going to take these guys already because this draft class is really bad. 56 overall. That's pretty decent, but he is 19 already, so that's the little bit of a question mark. Maybe he's going to be more of a depth defenseman, but I don't mind grabbing ourselves another good defensive prospect just because obviously it's kind of like a rotating door of defenders and players on our team, so let's also go for that goalie already, too. I know he's technically not something we need, but he's got high elite potential. He's 20 years old already. So let's just take him just so we can take him. 52 overall at 20 is very, very low. But that potential, maybe he'll get a lot of growth within a few years. But at least it gives us another goalie prospect in case one of the goalies that on our team ends up leaving. Because we do have a lot of goalies that are kind of just coming in and out. So it's not necessarily something that we drastically needed, but I think it's something that's decent just in case we end up losing something. All right, we have 2 more selections to go. Mark LaBarbera looks like trash. McKinley's a medium bottom 6 guaranteed. We could always just take him because he's another center. Yeah, you know what? Let's just take McKinley. We could use more centers, so I'll take him. There you go. 58 overall. I know it's not a high potential, but it's better just to have that depth down the middle because that's something we haven't had in a while. Also, I just realized Carlo got traded to Boston, so Toronto traded him back to Boston. That's kind of funny. So, shout out to Brandon Carlo, who's still playing and will probably retire as a Boston Bruin. Last pick of our draft here. Is there anything crazy still on our pinned list? Let's see. Not really. There is another Fernandez, which is kind of interesting. Henry, but he doesn't look very good. Cleary, does not look very good. Downing, why is it still showing me Cleary? Come on. Low game, thank you. Downing, he looks like trash. And then Evenons is a low 7th D at 20, which is not very good. So, is there anything here I would take? Not really. I might go for Fernandez just because of his age, to be honest. There is also Wolski eligible to us, but he's already 20, which is not great. Yeah, at this point, it's kind of a random shot in the dark, so I'm just going to go for Fernandez. He's probably a medium bottom 6, let's be real, but he's probably the best because he's only 18. The rest of these guys are like 19 and 20. Might as well go for the youngest option, right? So Fernandez is a medium bottom 6, yeah. All right, that's fine. If they become anything like a 70 even, that's still, I think, a win. Hopefully they could at least make the AHL at some point, but that is our draft. Not necessarily the most craziest draft we've seen, but I think Mahalik's going to be decent enough. He's the 67 top 6. If he gets a good amount of growth within a year or so, I think he could be definitely a decent replacement at some point for Banak. Foligno's an interesting one, a low 4. Furchner has potential, but he's already 19. Kolik's interesting, but he's also 19 already too. Fritz Meyer's a 20-year-old goalie with good potential, but will he reach that potential? Maybe not. Maybe he'll be a career backup, but I think we made do with what we had and where we were drafting. So that's our draft. Let's get to the re-sign stage now and see how much money we have to re-sign people with. We got to bring back our AHL coaches, so let's go and do that. Because do not want to lose these coaches, because these AHL coaches obviously just helped this team to a Calder Cup victory, so we'll definitely re-sign them. If they want to come back, that is. We don't really need to readjust our NHL coaches, I don't think, that much, so I'm probably going to keep it the same for the time being. But we could readjust on who's the actual head coach and all that. But I think our coaching staff in both leagues is pretty good, so. We also got some scouts to bring back here, so let's get that done with. So we got to go down to good old Ziska, or Ziska, Oldrich. We also have Madden to bring back, Don Madden. And then we also have Mr. Francisco Kane. What a name. Mr. Francisco Kane. Or since he's named Francisco, it's probably like Kanya. Wojtek Zuk. I don't know how to pronounce that. Zuk? Yeah, probably the D is silent on that. And then O'Byrne is the last scout to bring back. Willow O'Byrne will bring them back, and that's all their scouts dealt with, so that's pretty easy. Now the re-sign stage, though, like I said, is the tough part about this episode, probably, because likely Dave Antonio will be leaving his team. But first, we're obviously going to go to our RFAs and deal with this, I think. Actually, let's go to the UFAs first and foremost here for a second, because obviously the big UFA that's going to be making a huge jump this season is Polak. He's likely going to play on our defensive core next season because he is looking fantastic. Get him signed up here. We also do have to sign Kuda. Kuda jumped up to a 69, so he's actually good enough for the AHL probably at this point. But he started off as a low overall, so that's good. I might have to free up some roster space, so I think we're going to obviously let go of the Cap Oil Pied, even though he did just score the Calder Cup winner. We're also going to let go of probably Lees as well, just to free up more roster space. I'd like to hold on to some of the 70s just because they're decent enough. Appleby could end up making it, so we'll sign him up for the AHL too. Allison is not ready really as a bottom 6 option. He's at 58 at 20, which is really low, so I'm just going to let him go to free agency, even though he has potential. And then these guys, all I would probably like to hold on to, majority of them, except for, like I said, Dave Antonio, I'm not too sure on. We'll come back to those guys in a second. In terms of the RFAs, obviously we'll bring back the RFA AHLers, but on one-year deals, just because, or else we're going to have to keep on basically replacing them with the other younger guys. And I don't want to have too many people under contract long-term. So I'm going to just sign all these AHLers to one-year deals if they'd be willing to accept, which they should. Just because we wanted to make the AHL team still competitive, but I don't want people being signed for 2 years and then basically taking a roster spot away from somebody who is currently unsigned. So we'll get all these guys signed up on one-year deals. Camper's basically almost an NHL depth forward, so we might as well hold on to people like him. Same goes with Helmer. It's going to be interesting to see what this team's looking like at the start of the year. I think Fernandez and Rankin should be even better at the start of the year, so we might have a bit too much depth almost on our forward side of things. Nakamura's obviously going to get it re-signed. He only still wants a one-year deal. He doesn't really want to do a long-term thing, so we're going to still only give him a one-year deal. I know I'm kind of almost close to walking him to free agency, but we want to make sure that we keep using as much of his RFA status as possible, I think. So let's do that. Gotch is going to come back as a third-string goalie, likely. He only wants 875, so he'll get that easy done. And then Cantor is, I guess, technically, let's see, where is he in our depth system? Kavapel would have to get moved back down to the AHL. We're going to probably have to let go of Kavapel here because Cantor and Ambul could run the AHL. Koch needs a contract, though, so Cantor would still be the third-string goalie in the AHL. And I think we need 3 in each league. So I think, yeah, Kavapel's got to go, unfortunately. So I will re-sign Cantor just to give us that extra depth goaltender in the minors in case of injuries. So we'll do a one-year deal for him. And then UFAs, I am going to be signing Coach over Kavapel. I do like Kavapel, but there's not really a chance that I could hold on to him, especially with another prospect coming up. So, yeah, Kavapel, 5th round pick in 2029. We're going to have to say goodbye to him. Longtime NHLer for us. Did get to play any games this season for us, or the last 2 years for us, I guess. Did actually play some playoff games, I guess, and it was really good during it, but there's just no way I could really hold on to 7 goalies or whatever under contract. So we're going to send Kavapel to free agency. Maybe he'll come back at some point as a depth goaltender again, but for now, he's going to free agency. So that's a tough one to do, but kind of makes sense with where we're at with our goalie situation. And then UFAs, of course, I am going to try and bring back mostly all these AHLers that are like 73 for a year if possible, just to make sure the AHL team doesn't lose that championship mentality a little bit. Some of these guys might end up getting scratched, but that's okay. So I'll give them all one-year deals still, just because that way I could walk them to free agency again next year, potentially. The same goes with Bednar, who doesn't want a one-way contract this year. That's good, because last year he wanted a one-way. And then obviously guys like Nichols and Miller are good enough to be NHL depth forwards, so I am going to hold on to them. Nichols wants 1.6 for 2 years. which is not bad as a depth option. So I think we're going to obviously lower his contract because we probably can a decent amount. Yeah, we could get him for $14.75. I don't think that's an overpay. We aren't even going to give him a clause either. So we'll give him what he's asking for. It's a little bit high maybe for a 77, but I need some depth on my team. And then same goes with Miller. We're going to give him, yeah, the 1 year deal's fine with me too. All right. These guys are asking for pretty similar contracts. And Barrett's an interesting one because Barrett was really good a few years ago. We're going to still hold on to him, of course, but he has dropped off since his 42-point season. He has not been the same type of player since then, but I still would like to hold on to him because he's a decent like depth forward or fourth liner. And he doesn't really want a lot either. He wants actually less than the other guys, which is kind of surprising. So we'll give him 1.1 for 1 year. And then Antonio, like I said, we have the money to bring back Dave, but I don't think it's really something we should do. Let's advance and just see if we got everybody back so far. See if anybody rejected. Because who knows if anybody wants to actually leave this team or not. I feel like most people actually want to come back to it, which is good. So did anybody reject? Didn't see any rejections in there so far. Looks like everybody's holding on, which is good. Yeah, we have $41 million in cap space, but we're still thinking about letting go of Dave because this defensive core without Dave technically is still Paco, Lee, Urquhart. We need to buy out Andrews. That's right. I forgot about buying out Andrews. That's something we have to do here too. You guys were saying about buying him out. How much is it going to cost to buy him out? Only $500,000 for the year. That's actually not too bad, and it's for 2 years. Yeah, we could definitely buy him out. But do we want to buy him out? Powell is still listed as a top 4 too, right? Yeah, he is. Polak would make our defensive core. So if I'm looking at it realistically without Dave, basically we'd have Paco and Lee as the top pairing. We'd have Urquhart and we'd have Powell as the second pairing. And then Polak would be playing with Andrews. I guess, well, Richardson could be still jumping up before the season starts. That's the thing. I honestly might want to keep on to Andrews just in case, but I can't buy him out before the season starts, can I? I have to only do it during the offseason. Do I think Richardson will grow to a 78 at least before the season starts next year? I feel like he will. Ullman's close too, so... I know people want me to buy him out, so I'm trying to think if it makes sense. Like, I do really like Andrews. He's 87 defensive awareness. It's only 1 year at 1.5. It's not really that bad of a contract either. But Andrews is listed as a top 4. Yeah, Powell's listed as a top 4. Urquhart, Lee are top 4. Same with Paco. So I think just because of him listed as a top 4, we're going to have to still say goodbye to Andrews. But I do think Richardson should jump up to the NHL and hopefully be ready to play next to Polak on that top 6, potentially. So that's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, let's buy out Andrews. Not that we really need to, but we're going to say goodbye to him. Let's take a look at his career numbers with Europe. 128 points in 615 games. Playoffs, he had 9 points in 23 games, so he's actually probably better in the playoffs than regular season, but we're going to have to say goodbye to him. Former second-round pick, and he did win a Masterton with us, but maybe he'll come back at some point if we need another top 6 defenseman, but for the time being, we're going to say goodbye to Mr. Andrews. It's only 2 years anyways, and it's $500,000. It's not that much, so let's buy him out. That's the first time I think I've bought out a player in franchise mode, so that's kind of interesting. All right. But now it comes to the thing, like I said, Dave Antonio, I think, has to leave as well. And I know there's going to be a lot of people probably mad about this, but that asking price is kind of high. He does have a lot of organizational interest, which is good. But even at that organizational interest, the least we could probably get him for on that 7-year deal is probably like around 11.2. And I don't really know if 11.2 is what I want to do. Because that's a lot for a defenseman. That's more basically money than Paco's making and the Lee's making. I know Dave's a great leader and all, but yeah, that no movement clause obviously wouldn't matter really because we just do that just to help out with the contract a bit. But yeah, I don't think I could justify 11.2. Especially with, like I said, guys like Powell being listed as a top 4. Powell needs that playing time. And he's going to be a guy that could grow to being really solid. Obviously, he only had a 13-point season this year, but he's got good defensive stats, I think. I think he's on his way to becoming a really useful player for this team. And then, like I said, if we get growth from Richardson, from Ullman, Polak making the NHL, I just don't really see a place for Dave Antonio. So I'm going to have to say goodbye to Dave Antonio. Former 3rd overall pick back in the first draft, I think, of this franchise mode, or the second one, I guess, technically, because Benak was the first. But he's had an up and down career with us. He's been actually pretty good as of late, but I just can't think of a way to actually hold on to him, to be honest. Like, his plus minus has definitely improved. He's gone better offensively the last 2 years, but 11.2 for a guy that puts up 33 points, to me, that seems like a lot. I would prefer to pay like a defenseman like Paco that money if he's putting up like 60 points, right? And I think Lee's already kind of surpassed Dave Antonio as the second best defenseman almost on his team. So he's also been a liability in the playoffs, does take a lot of penalty minutes. Yeah, I got to say goodbye to Dave Antonio, I think. So this is a tough one to do, but hopefully not too much of you guys are mad about this decision, but I think it's the right call. I think it's the right call at this point. If obviously he was signed still for another year, I wouldn't buy him out. I probably would still hold on to him, but the fact that he's trying to get basically a $4 million increase and become probably the highest paid player on the entire team, not just the defense, right? Yeah, he would be the highest paid player on this team. And we need that money for Klinga when Klinga's up for renewal, because Klinga is very important, I think, for the offensive group. So, yeah, I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to say goodbye to Dave Antonio. So, salute to him, and best of luck to wherever he signs, which obviously we'll find out in this episode, I guess. But goodbye, Dave Antonio. That's a tough one, man. So, Antonio is gone, and Andrews is gone. I'm going to have to see where they sign in this episode. But, yeah, that's a really tough decision. And hopefully not too much of you, like I said, are mad about that decision. I think it's a good decision to make at this point, but I know there's going to be arguments either way. And Mahalik being a 67 overall, do I want to give him a contract already? I don't think so. I think I want to just wait and see if he'll grow after 1 year. So I'll keep all our unsigned guys unsigned for the time being. I forgot that we had Tambellini as a goalie prospect too. So yeah, we're just kind of building up a lot of goalies in our team, but that's okay. I think everything's good. We do need a cap oil still on this team, which I know you guys could have said Dave Antonio could have been that cap oil, but I decided not to do that. So let's simulate to free agency and see how much money we need to spend on a cap oil. But yeah, I know I could have used Dave as a cap oil, but I'm not using Powell as a top 6 defenseman because that could stunt his growth. We need to play him in his actual role. So how much money do we need to spend to be cap compliant is the real question now. So if we go propose trade, how much money do we got? Yeah, we still have a pretty big gap. So if I sign a guy to like 25 million, I should be more cap compliant then. So let's find out who we got in terms of free agents, the low-end free agents. I don't think we're going to bring back any former players already, but maybe we could do that if there's somebody that we forgot about that isn't super good. We'll probably sign it on, let's sign it on defense, maybe that cap oil. I wonder where Dave Antonio is going to go. He has 3 teams interested in him, and look, he's trying to get 13 million on the open market, so we could have definitely got him for 2 million cheaper than other teams are going to be able to, but I just don't think it was worth trying to bring him back. I wonder where he's going to go, though. And then Andrews on the open market's trying to get 6.4. See, if we would have held on to Andrews as well for the year, that would have been the last year probably with this team, because 6.4 for an 81 is a lot of money. So I think obviously we're going to need to sign some of our players on our current roster before the season starts, because or else we're going to end up running into some really bad cap issues potentially. Yeah, I guess we're going to have to go down to low-end players here and sign somebody that doesn't want their ELC and just give them a ton of money to play in our AHL team. And maybe they'll score a Calder Cup winner like that other guy did. That's kind of funny that it was that guy of all people. But let's see, who wants to be our cap boy on defense in the minors? It's going to be Grenier. What's your first name? Nathan. Nathan? I don't know. It's probably like Nathan, but it's Nathan. Let's do a 1-year deal. And $25.7 million. Enjoy that, man. Is that going to make us cap compliant now? Let's see. Let's see. Proposed trade. Are we cap compliant? Yes, we are. Okay, so one $25 million contract, and we're good to go. Like I said, I don't think we really need to bring in any new coaching staff. Obviously, we need to do maybe a couple off-season focuses on some of the younger options on our team, though, too, still. But do we need any new coaches? I don't think, right? Let's see who there is available for them, out of curiosity. John Hines is available, 63%. 69% for this Wallin guy. That's actually really high. And he's only 57. Well, that's an interesting development. Because 69% I think is higher than our current head coach and Tourney, right? 68 for Tourney. I can't really promote and demote. I'm gonna have to fire the AHL goalie coach for the time being, so I'm gonna write down Prindis for the time being so I remember about him. Because I think I need to hire ourselves a new coach here. Let's demote Tourney for the time being. I just want to see how good of a fit these other coaches are that we have on our coaching staff. 56 is really low. Really low. Verada was a 63. So, by that logic, Pinot is going to be fired. And we're going to move Tourney to our head coach again for a second. Let's fire Pinot. And then we can bring back Prindis, of course. But I am going to need to temporarily demote Tourney to an associate coach. And I'm going to go all in on Wallin. There's a lot of teams interested in him, though. So this is going to be probably tough. But we're going to jack this all the way up and hope that it helps. All the teams that are interested in him are in the Metropolitan Division. But I'm just jacking us all the way up because we need this coach. We need him. Because he looks like he's going to be the better coach over Tourney, and he's also very young compared to guys like Tourney, so I think that's exactly what I wanted to see for coaches. I didn't really expect to make a coaching change this offseason, but let's see if we get him, and once we get him, then we'll sign Prindis back as our goalie coach if he's still available, which hopefully he is. So I think that's all we really need to do other than the off-season focus stuff. So let's do a couple off-season focuses. We don't really need to do a ton on our veterans, but I did want to do a couple on some dudes like Rankin and Fernandez, since Rankin and Fernandez are both probably going to be in the NHL this season. Let's keep on getting Rankin better in terms of his offensive awareness. I don't know how low it is, but I just really want him to be a good impact player at the NHL level. Last time he was in the NHL, he wasn't doing a lot. And then, of course, Fernandez being in the NHL this year, we still need him to improve on his face-offs because he might be utilized more as a winger this season. So let's get him working on there. And hopefully his face-off numbers could get at least to like a 70 plus because or else he won't win a lot. Is there anybody else I need to do off-season focuses on that I really need to? I don't think so. There probably is. Actually, maybe somebody like Simic. Considering Simic is going to be maybe a starting goalie this upcoming season. Depends on how him and Forster both look. But they might both have the starting job, which is going to be interesting. So there's our goalie situation dealt with. I think that is all good. AHL, I don't really know if I want to do any focuses down there. I think natural growth from Richardson and all that should come. But maybe I'll do it to Richardson just because he could be a defenseman for us this season. So let's try and get his defensive game to get even better. He is a two-way defenseman, but I want to make sure that he could be good in his own end too and not a liability. All right, so that's all good and dealt with. We could advance a few days and see if that that head coach will come to our team. We jacked up the price a lot, so I hope he will. And if he does, yes, he does. He joins the team. Let's go. All right, that's huge. That is huge. He doesn't have a great career record, but he has a good fit with our team. So that's where I think that addition was much needed. Because now Tourney, even though he was great as a head coach, he's going to be our assistant. Wallin, though, should fit this team better. Maybe he'll make the chemistry look good. If he doesn't make the chemistry look good, we could always demote him. But this should hopefully make us a better looking team and simulate better too. Now we just need to bring back Prindis as that goalie coach again if he is still there, which I don't know if he will be, but we'll double check. We got to go on teaching grades. And is this Prindis already? It is. Okay, perfect. There is a lot of teams interested in him. Hopefully he's not mad because we fired him. But let's just give him as much as possible. And maybe he'll come back and be our goalie coach again. If not, there is some other options too. So That's all dealt with for the coaching staff. I think we're pretty much ready to sim up to next season if Prindis accepts, which he does come back. That's good to see. He's not too mad at us, which is nice. So, coaching staff is dealt with. We did some off-season focuses. I could already look into an extension for Klinga before the season even. Let's see what he's wanting right now. Yeah, I think we got to get him signed already. I know it's going to be an expensive contract, but I think I have to get him signed already. And this is why I let go of Dave Antonio as well. I know he's wanting a no movement. We're going to do 13.575 for 8 years with a no movement. I think Kling is very important to our offense, so that's why I'm going to give him this. So let's get him signed already and see if he's wanting to accept that. He wasn't really interested in talking an extension yet, but I want him to accept because if we go basically throughout the season without him accepting, he's going to end up putting up crazy good numbers and demanding even more than that. So let's see if he'll sign that contract. I think I just saw that Brad Andrews signed in Utah on the bottom. We'll find out stuff like that at the start of the year. And he's not interested in extending his interest. However, if you prove your offer, I might change my mind about it. Come on, Klinga. I got to get you signed before the season, my man. Because you are the important player on this team. Since we let go of Dave Antonio, we're going to have to lower this not as much as we were before. So we're going to probably lower this to like 14. An 8x14 contract. Probably will get it done. Maybe even 8.5. 13.85. Let's try that. It's a little bit more than I'd like to, but we're going to be having to pay a lot of these players that type of money as they get better. So it only makes sense. So let's advance. See if Klinga will accept that extension before we get to our lines. And he accepts. Nice. He likes that generous offer, so it was not that much more than what we were doing before, but that's great to have Klinga on board till pretty much the end of his career, maybe. So let's him up to next season, get our lineup set up. But I think that was an important thing for us to do is get him signed before the season because you know how players play in their last year of their contracts. They all of a sudden pick up like 50 goals or something, and then they end up wanting like $20 million. Because right now, Klinga's goal scoring high was like 30 something and like 70 points around, I think. But if he was going to go into his contract year without a contract, you know he'd want a lot more than that. All right, our captains should be fine with the way it is from last season. Let's get this set up here. Make sure the right guys are in the AHL and the right guys are in the NHL. So let's see what we got here. So Forster in Simic, one of the two. Still don't know which how it's pronounced like, but Forster's listed as an elite goaltender as an 85. That's kind of interesting. And then Simic is up to a starting goaltender at 82. So Simic might not be happy being a backup right now, but it might only be for the year if we do let go of Forster at some point. Gotch is going to come up as that depth goaltender. He might complain about ice time, but we need to have 3 goalies in each league. Cantor is going to be a healthy scratch in the AHL. It's going to be Ambul and Koch running the show down there. So that's all good. Defensively, we have Paco, Lee, Urquhart, Powell. Polak is an 80 overall now. My man, let's go. That's great. Yeah, Polak is really exciting. 96 passing, 89 offensive awareness. His shot is still only 2.5 stars, but Polak is probably the most intriguing player we've had in a while. And then we also have Maltby. Ullman's listed as a depth D, and same with Richardson. Who would I prefer to play next to Polak? Probably a right D. So I think Richardson already might play in the NHL. He only has 81 defensive awareness. Technically, Ullman's better defensively. It would be good to put a DFD next to an OFD. You know, let's call up Ullman as that option. If I can. I have to send somebody down, of course. But Maltby will still be our depth defenseman for sure. In terms of forwards, Hiromis, Nakamura, McElhaney, and Bradford. Bradford is listed as a third-line scoring forward now. That's good, because before he was a second-liner. Helmer's kind of good enough to be a depth forward, but I don't know if I need him yet. Left wing, we have Klinga, Law, Nichols. Nobody else, really. And in centers, we have Benak, Green. Rankin is up to an 83. Fernandez an 82. My God, I didn't expect him to get that much growth. Mullen is a 79 and Miller's a 77. Mullen is still listed as a fourth liner, so I guess he could be healthy scratched. Miller as a depth forward's okay. Yeah, I think it's got to be something like that. All right, let's go best lines and see what we got here. Actually, I wanted to call up Ullman still as that depth defender. So we had too much forwards in our NHL team, I guess. Let me go back to this. I think we have too many forwards up there because I need a depth defenseman or an actual top 6 defenseman, which is Ullman. Who do I need to send down then? None of these guys. None of these guys. It's got to be Miller, I guess. Because Mullen's going to be having to beat a healthy scratch. He can't get sent down, I think, because of his claws. So, I think Mullen's also in the last year of his contract, correct? Yeah, he is. Okay, so that's good at least. That will help things a bit once he's ending. But yeah, for now, I guess Miller's going to have to get sent down, which I don't really like. But Barrett's technically taken over his... Or not Barrett. Technically, Rankin and Fernandez have taken over his spot a little bit. All right, we need to readjust this for sure. So starting off, top line is fine the way it is. Third line, though, is going to be Law. It's going to be Rankin and Fernandez. I don't think Fernandez's face-offs are that good, right? Yeah, they still aren't. He's going to play right wing. I can't put McElhinney that low, though, in the lineup, so we got to have him on that second line, of course. Fourth line is going to be Bradford, Nichols, and Mullen. Yeah, I guess that could work. Mullen doesn't really have the best face-offs either, but he is a center. All right, yeah, that's what I planned for the forward group. I feel like it's too offensively minded. Two-way sniper playmaker. Like, I feel like having a sniper and a playmaker on a fourth line role isn't ideal. Bradford's also still got his no movement clause clicking in next season. Oh, man. Do I send him down to the AHL to get him claimed? We could do that before the season starts. If you guys think, like, Bradford... I do like Bradford, but he's kind of in a role where he's getting less and less ice time, and his no movement clause clicks in next season. So if I put him on waivers, maybe he gets claimed, and then we won't have to deal with that. And then we could use somebody like Helmer or Miller more on that fourth line, because they are more defensively minded, especially Miller. And we can move Mullen back over to the right wing or something. I honestly might think about waiving Bradford, but I don't know if he'll get claimed for sure. I can't trade him. So if I waive him, would he get claimed and then we could get rid of him that way? That's an interesting development. So I need you guys' opinion on that. Because obviously, there's no way they're going to be cracking into the top 9 at this point. Fernandez is taken over. He's a third-line scoring forward now. He's definitely playing in that top 9. Same goes with Rankin. The two of these guys are coming up together, basically. So I could move some of them into the top 6 too if I really need to, but yeah, I think for right now, this is what I would have set up, but I think maybe about waiving Bradford. Barrett's actually scratched too. Oh my god, he's actually listed as a depth forward. He isn't wanting a lot of money, so I guess he is okay to be a depth forward, but maybe I would scratch Mullen in favor of that, just because Mullen's actually not that good at face-off, so putting Barrett in that spot might be not a bad idea, but Mullen would be the depth forward on this team. Or would I prefer to use Nichols as the depth forward? Yeah, maybe I would prefer to use Nichols, even though he is a two-way forward. Just because Mullen's obviously a fourth liner, I think, still at this point, right? Yeah. All right, maybe we go something like that instead. And then Nichols would be depth. Ullman would be playing in our lineup, so we got to get him in. We play him next to Maltby instead. Because the chemistry should be good here, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. There's an OFD and a DFD. That seems really nice to me. And then Polak, Urquhart, Lee, Paco. I think our defensive core looks really good. I know there's a little bit of a hole without Dave Antonio on it, but I think the defensive core looks better. And then goalies is Forster and Simic. Yeah, that looks nice. Power play right now, they're having Paco, Klinga, Horomis, Benak, McElhinney. Second unit, Lee, Nakamura, Bradford, Law, and Green. I kind of would like to put what's his name? Polak on the power play. I kind of want to, so let's see how Polak would fit that. Not the best right now, but I think Polak getting power play time makes sense with his OF stats. So we're going to do that. We're going to just obviously... Yeah, we're going to keep this unit the same. Penalty kill looks decent. Looks like the chemistry is pretty good with this coach for the most part. Maybe a couple things are underlining, but if you guys think there's anybody that should be on the power play that isn't, let me know. I know, obviously, it would be nice to get Fernandez on the power play. It'd be nice to get Rankin, but I'd probably have to take Law off the power play. And I don't really know who else. So we have a lot of guys that should be on the power play, but we can't really get everybody on it. In terms of the AHL, let's just briefly make sure that the right guys are in the lineup. Anybody scratch, Koch needs to be in over Cantor. And then we also have Blatter and Appleby. Appleby should probably be playing because he's young. Blatter has low 6 potential, so maybe he should be playing over somebody. Wow, Retzer's already 26? No, he's 24. Pearson's 24. I don't know who I would take out of the lineup here. Maybe somebody like Locke we'll take out for Blatter. And then we'll take Skilly out because he's already 24 as well for Appleby. And I'm going to move a couple people around in this lineup. Like Kuda needs to be higher because he's got really good potential. But we'll put him on the second line because of the chemistry. Something like that. And the defensive chemistry in the AHL is really good. That's nice. Love to see that. Alright, yeah, I think this is basically how I would have it set up. So, I think for the most part, the only thing I'd be maybe thinking about doing is basically waiving Bradford so he gets claimed just because I don't really think I could get him back into this top 9, and he's a third-line scoring forward. So, he isn't making a lot of money, really, but I don't think he should be playing in a fourth-line role. So, there's that. That's our team set up, hopefully, for the season. Final thing we got to take a look at to end off this episode is the upcoming draft class and also where our guys signed. In next episode, if you guys could remind me, we'll take a look at the new players on our roster, if there's any, which I think there's maybe some, if I'm not mistaken. But let's take a look at this upcoming draft class here and see if there's anything for us. Early on, there's a S guy, but we're not going to be drafting that early. That's going to be a medium elite player, but we need to go by each league. So let's go each league and see what we got. I know this episode's a little bit long. So there is actually some stuff in Germany. There's a defenseman, some forwards. Yeah, there's actually some options in Germany, it looks like. So we are going to probably find some prospects this year. I think this draft class probably will be better than last year's. That's just my guess right now. Switzerland has a few players, or quite a few players. Some of them supposed to go early, some not so much. Czech Republic. They have some first-round talent. That's good to see. Because sometimes the Czech Republic has, like, barely anything. So there's going to be some options for us here. Austria... There's some people there as well, but most of them aren't supposed to get drafted. We'll just pin them all, because why not? Anybody from Sweden here that is from Denmark? There's Krog and Shields. And also Yoshi. That'd be funny to have a Yoshi on my team. From Finland, there is some Norwegians, including Madsen, who's a first rounder. Muzzin, who's a goalie. Alright. Yeah, I definitely think this year's draft class might have more depth to it than some of the other drafts we've had recently. Which is good because we're not going to probably be drafting super early. Unless our team does really bad with this new coach. And Allsvenskan, nothing, of course. Russia does not have any Polish players, unfortunately. There's one right there, Shannon. And that's it. And then in terms of the rest of the world, nobody from the rest of the world. So, a couple guys pinned at least for a couple episodes from now, hopefully. And final thing we got to take a look at is where Dave Antonio and those guys signed. So let's head on over to the player search. Like I said, I apologize about the length of these episodes lately. They've just been all of a sudden getting way longer than I anticipate, but they're fun episodes. So let's first find out where Andrews signed, which I think I saw was Utah, but I'm not too sure if it was for sure. As maybe he got dealt Sinston or something. Yeah, he's in Utah. So Brad Andrews has joined the Utah Mammoth on a 5-year deal at $6 million. Yeah, I would not have been able to re-sign him for sure in the offseason. So good on him to sign a long-term deal with Utah. Hopefully we don't have to run into him, but yeah, he's definitely the type of guy I would not have been able to bring back at that type of price point, in my opinion. All right, so there's Andrews. And then lastly, the man, the myth, the legend. Actually, I don't even know if I would consider him a legend, really. I don't think he's even going to make the Channel Hall of Fame, to be honest. And why is my controller drifting like this? Oh, this is the annoying thing about controller drift, is it does not work right now. My new controller is supposed to come today, but the controller drift is acting up in this. So we want to look up for Dave Antonio, not Antonio Brown. He signed with the Boston Bruins. Well, that kind of fits his mold. He's a physical defenseman. He signs with Boston. So in our division, I think, right? Or no. not in our division. Or is it in our division? It might be in our division. But he gets a no movement clause. And he's making 7 years at $12.89 million. So, shout out to Dave Antonio. He probably will have to retire as a Boston Bruin. Wow. Well, that's going to be an interesting look for him in Boston. But like I said, I don't think I could have justified bringing him back with how our defensive core is building up. Like, at least Altman's getting a chance this year. Polak's getting a chance. It's going to be exciting to see what this team could do. So, anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our European Draft Glory franchise mode. So, in next episode, we'll have another season simulation. This team should make it back to the playoffs pretty easily, considering we have a new head coach and all that. And it's going to be interesting to see what this team could do this year. I think we're going to definitely have maybe a better offensive game having a guy like Polak in our lineup. I think he could drive our offense to being better than it has been in years past. And I'm excited just to see how the rest of the guys continue to get better. So let me see that below, and I'll see you guys next time.